evening. Topping our news tonight, it all came down to the last few hours in session where lawmakers added what appeared to be everything but the kitchen sink to an already heavy session agenda. And while pressed for time, lawmakers moved forward with discussing several of the measures, many of which are considered highly controversial. Ken Quintanilla has more.
Lawmakers spent the entire morning and most of the afternoon discussing one measure, Bill 100, relative to requiring the deposit of unclaimed or unpaid tax refund checks into the Income Tax Refund Reserve Fund. Specifically, it was an amendment proffered by Senator Tina Muñoz-Barnes to use $3.6 million to be dispersed to the Department of Administration for computer system upgrades, to revenue tax for real property reevaluation, to pay merit bonuses for the judiciary, and to the Guam Police Department for police vehicles. After a lengthy debate, that amendment was eventually withdrawn, leading lawmakers to add a list of other bills to the agenda. It all started with Senator Rory Respicio.
Before we discuss Bill 132, I move to place Bill number 20-32, COR, as substituted by the Committee on Health and Human Services, Health Insurance Reform, Economic Development, and Senior Citizens at the top of the second reading file.
Substituted Bill 20, authored by Senator Dennis Rodriguez Jr., would tax gaming devices that were the subject of a 5-year-old lawsuit that was dismissed earlier this year and revert the revenue to the Guam Memorial Hospital. And from there, it opened up a can of worms, rather bills to be introduced on session agenda as well.
Mr. Speaker, at this time I move that we move Bill 19 as substituted by the author to the second reading file. It has a committee report and everything is complete with regard to putting it on the floor.
On behalf of one of our colleagues, I'd like to move for the placement of Bill number 87-32, COR, as substituted by the Committee on Aviation, Ground Transportation, Regulatory Concerns, and Future Generations. And just for the information of the body and the public, this is relative to implementing a limited helmet law.
Bill 19 would allow the Director of Revenue Tax to take on the role of the Dormant Gaming Control Commission and assess an interim 20% tax on all GRT from all gaming activities in Guam that don't have a specific tax rate. Specifically, it aims to tax the GNOC bingo lottery. Bill 87, meanwhile, is authored by Senator Tommy Morrison. But it didn't stop there. Senator Ben Pangilinan wanted to include 3 more measures that were all vetoed by Governor Calvo. Bill 64 relative to licensing of service contracts sold on Guam, Bill 9 relative to the QC Review Board, and Bill 81 regarding health insurance. Evidently, lawmakers were pressed for time.
We're up against time because we can't meet past 10 o'clock, and I will tell you, Madam Speaker, if I need to remind you, as president of APIL, we have to be at that presentation, and if time runs out on us, then we won't be able to get to these bills.
Senator Tina Muñoz-Barnes ultimately put 3 measures on the agenda as well. Bill 121, 124, and 122 were all added, but eventually removed from the agenda. Lawmakers hinted at possibly meeting late this evening to discuss all the added agenda items as well as vote on close to 24 measures discussed throughout the week. Reporting for Guam's News Network, I'm Ken Quintanilla.
About a half hour ago, Senator Dennis Rodriguez Jr. implied that several bills were added on to the agenda after Bill 20 was added to suppress discussion on his bill. Immediately after he made that comment, there was a motion to refer Bill 20 back to committee. That motion failed. The session continues as we speak.